All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Seems we might have had a little confusion in what we were talking about yesterday, so we're going to continue that a little bit today. In studying history, in studying a country, if you study American history, the first thing people will say is, well, I don't know, or the Civil War, or even something like the Revolution, which you guys will be great at because we did a nice little job on that exam. But I'm going to quote one of my favorite philosophers. Great warrior, warriors not make one great. The philosopher Yoda once said that. War's not what makes a country what they are. What a country needs is to treat its people well, and in order to do that, it is up to the country and the people living in it to make sure that gets done. So today, we're going to reiterate a little bit of what we covered yesterday. I am going to show you how to take the 2-column notes, which we have already been exposed to in our CRIS strategy trainings. So as far as right now, I just want you to get open your 2-column notes templates, and I will tell you where everything goes, and we will start discussing exactly what we did yesterday. Yesterday, our number one was reforming society. Social reform and reforming society is basically making society better. And our number two was the Second Great Awakening. We talked about Charles Grandison Finney leading the Second Great Awakening, a time in American history where they kind of changed gears. Instead of saying you're predestined for salvation, they went and said your salvation is going to be based on what you do on this planet, in this life, how much you do for others. Then we went into the social reformers speaking out, the temperance movement, which was a movement, if you remember, to urge people to use self-discipline to stop drinking. They were having significant problems with work absences, and there was abuse at home for that. Another thing we talked about yesterday was the prison reform. Spearheaded by Dorothea Dix. Prison reform. She was a woman throughout Massachusetts, reported that mentally ill people were housed and jailed with criminals. She also found out that orphans at times were housed with criminals. She got Massachusetts to build facilities for the mentally ill, for the runaway and orphan children. They found reform schools for them. And the overcrowding in prisons, they got more state budget funding for more prisons. All right, so today we're going to be talking about another reform movement that's near and dear to my heart, yours too, because that's what we're doing today, education. So our number one, well, let's make it a number two. Our number two in our hearts, as well as our 2-column notes, is improvements in education. Number two, improvements in education. Early education. Education in the 1800s, we could do that as a number three. And as a number four, education in the 1800s, New England had the most schools. The South didn't have many schools because the towns were so far apart. However, some of the richer families would hire tutors to teach their children. And a lot of times, even in the north, when it was time to harvest the crop or plant the crop, the children did not go to school. So our next number 3 is the common school movement. Common school movement we'll have to define. These are people who wanted children to be taught in a common place regardless of background. As a number 4, we have to put the man who spearheaded this. You ask the average person on the street who this man is, they probably don't know it. Millions of people have gone to the schools named after this man and they don't know what he did. It's Horace Mann. I worked at a school called Horace Mann. Teachers didn't know who he was, students had no idea who he was, but he was instrumental in education in Massachusetts. He became the Secretary of Education in Massachusetts. He convinced it was the job of the state to pay for schools, and he eventually, as a number 4, he doubled the size of the school budget. Another number 4, he raised teachers' salary. Another number 4, he lengthened the school year. I'm sure that's really popular among you guys. And another number 4 is he began university. It was actually, at the time, it was just a training school for teachers. And it became, like a university for teachers. All right. Switch gears a little bit, but we're on the same page. Our next number 3 is women's education. Women's education, first one as women's education would be a 3. Our number 4 would be Catherine Beecher. Catherine Beecher started an all-female academy in Hartford, Connecticut. So that would be a number 4. Okay, our next number 4, the first college education available to women was, our next number 4, the Troy Seminary, and that was started by Emma Willard. It was a university which was looked down upon for women at the time, but as far as being called a seminary, which would be religious studies, they said, well, that would be okay then. Several other women's colleges opened during the 1800s. Another number 4 would be Mount Holyoke College, was the first female medical college. All right, our next number 3, something near and dear to my heart because I've been involved in it for several years, is teaching people with special needs. As a number 4, 1831, Samuel Gridley Howe opened up the Perkins School for the Blind in Massachusetts. Before that, they had absolutely no way of getting an education. Another number 4, Thomas Gayaudet. That's 2 L's. Founded the first free school for the learning impaired. Thank you. The We Do. The next step is the We Do, which would be continuing 2-column notes. But in this aspect of the 2-column notes, I would be taking examples and having the students fill in the titles, subtitles, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and 4s. It would still be dealing with the social reform. We would get in the African American communities and how the Reformation movements in African American culture started to develop as well. the students after taking those, the 2-column notes for social reforms, the students will then be assigned a Newsela article based on the reforms that we had talked about, to provide formative feedback for understanding of social reforms. The articles range in what the lexile will be, depending on previous readings. There's quizzes after each reading, and then a small writing section in which I will grade. They don't like to do that, but I definitely have them do that because that really shows what they know about that. Resources. We will have a book, a textbook, or a book online. The PowerPoint I gave in the beginning from the day before. We will use the 2-column notes template that I have sent to the students. The Newsela article, which is set to different lexiles based on the student's performance. Assistive technology, well, the textbook is available in audio, online as well. If they highlight it, it is text-to-speech, English and Spanish. The lessons are recorded in Blackboard under the Blackboard Collaborative with the ability for the student to pause and play back at their own pace. There is also closed captioning in the Collaborate. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you as soon as possible. Thank you.